Week 6 of the Ohio high school football season is here. Welcome to another edition of the WCPO High School Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Dreyer. Coming up a little bit later, you're going to hear from Winton Woods coach Andre Parker and senior quarterback Michael Wingfield on the Warriors' big win against Anderson last week and the chance for a conference title this week in their game against Turpin. But this High School Insider Podcast is presented by our local Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the play of the game is always chicken. Log into the Chick-fil-A app for easy contactless ordering. First up, I want to introduce Indian Hill head coach Tony Arcuri. Indian Hill is 5-0 for the first time since the 2015 season. A 60-6 win over Taylor last week, and Coach Arcuri is joined by senior offensive tackle and linebacker Will Kleekamp and senior defensive end and tight end Zach Osterhughes. Coach, thanks for taking a few minutes. How's your week going?
Oh, great. We're off to a good start. A little rainy yesterday. In fact, it's the first time we had to contend with that. But despite those conditions, we had a pretty good practice. So far, so good.
Well, before we get into the football program a little bit, tell me about that new athletic facility there on campus. How nice that's been for you and your program.
Right. I tell you, it's a game changer in the sense that if you looked at where we were before, which was, I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but way up here in the school, it was probably, about a quarter of a mile walk, maybe a little less than that. But just being down there, the time that's saved in transition from maybe, offense, defensive meetings, watching film, where you can do that and then just step right out on the field. From a coach's standpoint, that's been the game changer. I know from a player standpoint, obviously it's just an upgraded, nicer facility. We have air conditioning in that locker room for the first time in Lord knows how long, which is a big benefit, obviously. So there are just so many positives about it.
And people are going to be watching this as well, the video. The posters in the background, I love seeing that. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on there in the background.
So what I try and do is, anytime a college, university sends us anything, I just try and post it in my room. It's kind of a double-edged sword. My football people think it's great, but I think sometimes my academic friends are like, what are you, an English teacher or a football coach? So you have to kind of live with both.
Well, obviously, Indian Hill, your team plays at Finneytown Friday, week 6, as I mentioned, of the Ohio high school football season, the last regularly scheduled week before the playoffs start. Coach, we're going to get into both sides of the ball here in a little bit, especially with your two seniors there. But tell me what is clicking on all cylinders for you right now? What do you like most about this group as we head into the postseason?
Well, I had remarked a couple weeks ago when we were playing one of our opponents, and they said, "Hey, you got a good football team." And we've had good football teams here for a while, but what I think sets this one apart is they're starting to get that the leadership has to come from them. There are a lot of little things that I think as a coach or coaching staff we had to do in the past, making sure guys are on time or making sure guys are paying attention in film. Those are kinds of things that we're not worrying about this year, because that's really been a leadership role that our captains and seniors have taken over. And ultimately when we're playing in November, we can't as coaches go out there and play. The incentive has to come from the kids that are on the field. And I think this season, perhaps more than any other, that's what I'm seeing.
Let me bring Zach Osterhughes, senior defensive end and tight end, into the conversation here. And Zach, thanks for taking a few minutes. Defensively, let's just start there. The defense has only given up 28 points all season. As I mentioned, a 60-6 win over Taylor last week. What's been the biggest key on that side of the ball for you guys?
Biggest key is probably communication and everyone doing their job. So we don't have anyone trying to be the best player out there or show he's the best. We have everyone filling their gaps and doing their role. And when you do that, you're successful.
Tell me about that camaraderie, that chemistry, maybe in the locker room as well. I mean, what makes you guys bond so well?
Well, we have a lot of seniors that play on defense and a lot of juniors, and we all grew up playing together. So it's pretty easy to gel. And I think this is a good group chemistry-wise. Like no one doesn't dislike anybody.
Great. I want to bring in Will here to the conversation, offensive tackle and senior linebacker Will Kleekamp. Will, just tell me about the uniqueness of this season. I've kind of talked about this all year, and I know you probably have heard a lot of people ask you about the shortened season, the uniqueness of it, the uncertainty going into this year. But What's that been like for you guys? Maybe it's something in the back of your mind at this point now, but how was that for you, just tackling it from this start of this season?
Yeah, so the uniqueness and the transition from, a normal season, COVID, I really don't find much of a difference. It kind of seems somewhat normal. I look up in the stands and it almost seems like, they're like a normal year. I think the schedule is pretty much the same. We've kind of held ourselves to the same standard and nothing has really changed. So, we're taking it 1 week at a time, and that's how it would be any year.
Tell me about a little bit about your defensive performance. 12 tackles in back-to-back weeks. 5 sacks, 40 tackles overall. What's been working well for you there in that linebacker position?
I wouldn't be able to do it without, my other teammates. They're the ones who are, filling the gaps and allowing me to make those plays. So, if they're not there and filling their gaps, then, I wouldn't be able to make those plays. And credit goes to them. I'm just trying to, take it 1 week at a time.
How much fun are you having with your teammates?
We're having a lot of fun. I think it's 28 points we've held opponents to, and so I really find that I consider that to be a big accomplishment for this defense. Our coaches, Coach Peak, Coach Ball, Coach Ethan Arcuri, they've done a great job coaching the defense, and we want to continue that success throughout the playoffs.
Tell me about what's like blocking. You got some pretty good offensive stars too on that side of the ball. What's it like blocking for some of those guys?
Yeah, Charlie Summerall, Antoine Peak, they're Ty, our quarterback. They're great playmakers, and really, we don't do much. I feel like they make a lot of the plays, and we're just up there, pounding other teams and helping them out.
Zach, I want to go back to you for a quick second here. Ty Thornton, junior quarterback, throwing for 775 yards, 11 touchdowns. He's rushed for close to 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. Talk about maybe how he's led the offense and maybe helped you as well with your tight end position.
Well, it all starts with him. He's the first one besides the center who really touches the ball, and he gives it to everyone. And he has a lot of poise. Like, he makes the correct reads. He throws it to where our guys can make a play on it. And he knows when to give it to the running backs when they're on and when to throw it to the receivers when they're also on.
Great. What about this backfield too? Charlie, you got Antoine. How effective have those guys been for you?
This is an electric backfield with two very different running styles. One is like brutality, like I'm gonna hit you and I'm still gonna get yards forward. And the other one is I can outrun you, I could juke you. And it helps with the dynamic of the offense because we can do both. We can rush outside and just outrun people, or we could just put it inside and just crush people up front.
Coach, you mentioned to me the fact that maybe the beginning of the season, you just love the athleticism, the depth, the skill spots, guys' ability to go both ways. I know that's nothing new, but certainly, you had to be excited about that starting this season.
Yeah, we one of the goals we had at the beginning of the season was to try and play guys on one side of the ball as much as we possibly could. We have been able to accomplish that goal to a degree. And if we haven't been able to accomplish that goal, we've been able to accomplish sort of 1.5. And I think that obviously, I know that come playoff football, when things tighten up and, you're playing into the fourth quarter and games are on the line, that's going to make a difference.
Talk about maybe some of those guys on the offensive side of the ball. How effective they've been with Ty and Charlie and Antoine. Go ahead.
One guy that we haven't talked about is Luke Hammond, who's having just a very, very memorable season. Just last week, 4 touchdown catches. And some of the things that he's been able to do are amazing. There was a catch just last week against Taylor that I don't think too many people would have caught. And so, I think there's a legitimate argument for, him perhaps being league offensive player of the year. I know that's I kind of would put Charlie in the same boat, Ty in the same boat. There's a lot of guys that deserve that honor.
Senior wide receiver Luke Hammond, 466 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns, by the way. What about your punter, Doug Zhang? You raved about him in the preseason. How effective has he been for you?
Well, he's had, we don't punt that much, or we haven't punted that much, but he's had 2 48-yard punts in the last 2 games. Just a beautiful punt last week. I think we know what he has, but certainly caught Taylor by surprise, took the returner and sent him running 10 yards backwards. He's just going to be a next level guy. I mean, he works on that craft. He takes a lot of pride in it. He's working on it outside the realm of practice. So it's something that he really values and wants to be able to do at the next level. But it's like anything with kickers, right? We tend to forget about them until we don't have them.
You talked about the seniors and the camaraderie. Maybe talk about these 2 guys to your right there, Zach and Will, what they've meant to the program.
Well, when you contacted me the other day and bring a couple kids with you, and I thought, well, these are no-brainers because I'll tell you, our guys like Ty and Antoine and Charlie and Luke, and, those guys get a lot of recognition. They're up for Players of the Week, things like that, week in and week out. But, our linemen, our offensive and defensive linemen, particularly these 2, they've been great program guys, great weight room guys that are examples to other kids just by action, not by necessarily words. But they're going to, our linemen are going to be what enables us to have success in the long run. You can't play deep into the playoffs and certainly not in a state championship game without a solid offense and defensive line. And, that's why I want to make sure these guys get the recognition they deserve.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the CHL question of an opportunity for a conference title. Obviously, you got to take care of business on Friday. But not playing Wyoming in the regular season, was that just a schedule thing, or was that just by design, or how did that work?
The athletic directors decided that we were simply going to go with the first 6 games on our schedule. And I respect that. I don't make schedules. I don't take care of the schedules. In my heart of hearts, did I want to play Wyoming this year? Yes, I inquired about it. But, we're not – Indian Hill and Wyoming aren't special when it comes to Cincinnati. So that's the decision that was made. We weren't going to make a bunch of arrangements for 2 teams in the league. There are other teams in the league that, didn't necessarily play their rival, so to speak. So it is what it is. But one thing I'm very confident of is if we do get the opportunity to see them in the playoffs, it'll be the type of game it's been in the past. And so, we'll be there, we'll be waiting, and we'll see what happens.
And Division 4, Region 16, obviously Wyoming, Indian Hill, Clinton, Massey, all Cincinnati area teams up in the top there of the Joe Itel rankings, which normally would be carrying a lot of weight for computer points. But before I kind of close with you, I asked this question to Evan Dreyer at Anderson last week, and I'm just kind of curious, what's your take on the playoffs? Everybody getting in, obviously, for the first time since the postseason was implemented in 1972. Do you like it? Is it remain to be seen? Do you rather go back to the computer point system?
I'll be frank with you. I'm not a fan of it. One of the things that I've always valued about high school football here in Ohio is that the playoffs are an earned privilege. And so, I'm all for that. I'm all for earning your way in. But I also understand this is a very unique year. And so I think under the circumstances, OSHA's done a good job with making this thing work. So the bottom line is, we'll control what we can control, and we'll prepare for what we can prepare for. But I will say one thing, actually here, when I finish with you, I will do the first voting for a playoff entry I've ever done in my coaching career. So it was kind of a funny process. I didn't really, know, and obviously I know what the criteria is, but I went to our soccer coach, and they vote every year on this stuff, of course. And I said, what goes through your mind when you're doing this? And so, I just got some advice, and I'm kind of looking forward to see how that seeding process plays out.
And all the brackets will be posted on Thursday afternoon by the OHSA as the long-anticipated tournament matchups are
exactly
announced. So, hey, I want to thank Indian Hill head coach Tony Arcuri, senior offensive tackle and linebacker Will Kleekamp, and senior defensive end and tight end Zach Osterhughes. All the best to Indian Hill going forward and into the playoffs.
All right, Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me.
Bye-bye.
Well, as you could hear from Indian Hill coach Tony Arcuri, the Braves are talented on both sides of the ball and certainly primed for a possible deep postseason run. That Division 4 Region 16 outlook certainly looks interesting with Wyoming, Indian Hill, and Clinton Massey right there at the top of a lot of standings with the strength of schedule this season. I want to remind everybody that this High School Insider podcast is presented by our local Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the winning play is free chicken. Log into the Chick-fil-A app for easy contactless ordering. While another team that is undefeated heading into Week 6 is Winton Woods. I was able to catch up with Winton Woods head coach Andre Parker after the Warriors' big win over visiting Anderson Friday night.
The kids are going to determine that. You know, it's the first time in 10 years they have that opportunity. It kind of going to work out like a conference championship game. Winner takes it. So, you know, what else can be said about that? You know, so we're happy.
I was able to catch up with senior quarterback Michael Wingfield after the game as well. A 3-year starter. Coach Parker raved about how Wingfield has led the Warriors this entire season. Wingfield also talked about the implications for a possible opportunity at a conference championship.
It's been a long time since we've been in the league. You know, we've been independent. And in the beginning of the season, Coach Parker told us we had the chance that a lot of teams didn't have to win a conference championship. He said, go win it for them. And that's what I think we're going to do.
Well, you could tell a lot of implications for the Eastern Cincinnati Conference this weekend as 3 teams enter the final week of the regular season with undefeated records. We have Winton Woods hosting Turpin and also undefeated Kings playing Loveland. You want to be sure to check out my story on WCPO.com about Oak Hill's sophomore multi-sport athlete, Kaylee Hebert. She's a kicker on the Highlanders football team, also plays for the junior varsity girls soccer team. And if that's not enough, she also plays travel softball on the weekends, in addition to playing basketball in the winter there at Oak Hills. Also have a poll on our WCPO Facebook group for high school sports revolving around the high school football playoffs. On Thursday, the playoff brackets will be announced by the OHSAA, but getting a lot of different opinions. I was able to talk to Anderson coach Evan Dreyer after the game last week. He said that every team should be in the playoffs, not only for this season, but just going forward. If you remember back in May, the OHSAA announced that there'll be an expansion for the 2021 season. They'll go from 8 teams per region to 12 teams per region. So I put a little poll out there to see what fans think of the entire high school football playoff picture. You get some coaches saying, hey, everybody should be in. Others saying, no, that's an earned right. And the computer points certainly have their place as well. So something to debate, something to talk about right there on our Cincinnati area high school sports Facebook group. I'm going to take a week off next week, take a little time to just kind of unwind, unplug for a little bit. But be sure to check out all our coverage. WCPO 9 Sports will have all the action for you as we gear up for high school football playoffs, believe it or not, here in early October. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you soon.